Hello friends, long time no see. I am so excited for this video because I had this idea a year ago or around a year ago that instead of doing 12 books by 12 friends recommendations this year, that I still wanted to do a form of that, but I wanted to do it my way. So I don't know if I'm going to get through 12 friends this year. I only have 6 friends and 6 books in mind at this current moment of filming. And what I'm planning to do right now is to do 3 friends per video, and that's going to take 3 months to do each of those videos. The concept is this. So instead of having each friend recommend me a book they want me to read, I am reading books that I was influenced to purchase or add to my TBR because of these friends. Now, some of these friends may know that they influenced me to purchase or read these books. Some friends may have no idea. These may be some people's favorite books of all time, and these could just be books that I associate with people. So it is all up to me, and I've been so excited to share this with you all. I've been so excited to compile all of these different people and their books into this video. So I'm going to be starting today with my January friend and book, and then I'll also do February's and March's. So this is over the span of 3 months, and I'm so excited to share these with you. So like I said, these are books that I was inspired to get because of these friends. I really decided that I wanted to read them because of these people. And the first friend and book that I'm going to be talking to you about today is Bethany from Bethany's Bookshelf, and the book recommendation is The Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. So I've heard about this book for a number of years now. Well, I guess not a number, because I think this only came out in 2021. But I remember other creators like Krista from Books and Jams talking about this book, and I know so many people have really loved it. But I wasn't sold until I saw this in Bethany's Favorite Books of 2023 video, and that is when I knew that I had to pick this one up. I'm going to link Bethany's video down below in the comments because she really convinced me to read this. So just in case I don't convince you, I think she can do it. So I want you to see where I got the inspiration from. So I knew next to nothing about this book except that people enjoyed it up until Bethany talked about it. And then I found out that it is not only a survival story / mystery, but it also is by an author who is a Christian. It's not labeled as Christian fiction, but the author definitely weaves themes of Christianity and I think maybe forgiveness and second chances in her story. And so I'm really excited to get into this one because I feel like any book that does that is going to be a hit for me. And I have already started this one, so I wanted to go ahead and give some initial thoughts. I am 10 chapters in and on page 76, so about this far. And it took me a little bit to kind of get my bearings because number one, this author's writing is so beautiful and immersive. It is very, very good. Like for anything else, like the literary merit in this is definitely worth you adding it to your TBR. But I was like, okay, I don't know if I like survival stories. I know I have liked some, but I don't know if that's something I gravitate towards. But I'm really here for this mystery, and just because like I know there's going to be something that ties in like with my faith for me here, because I do well with piecing that stuff together, even in secular books. So I was like, okay, I've just got to trust Bethany and go for it. So the past 3 chapters that I read was a really tense part in this story. Okay, I don't even think I've explained what this is about, so let me try again. Yes, this is a survival story and mystery, but it is following Cooper and Finch, and they live out in this remote cabin in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere. And they have been out here since Finch was a baby, and Finch is now 8 years old. And Cooper's keeping them out there to keep them safe. And they live off the grid. They have a friend who kind of brings them supplies yearly so they don't have to leave the safety of the cabin. But then one year the friend doesn't show up, and so now they have to survive. And there's a reason that they are isolated. There is something that is in Cooper's past, some sins that he has not faced. And so that is why they're out there, and because he just really wants to be with his daughter and not be split up from her. And along the way, we get bits and pieces of things that have happened. Like we know that obviously the mom is not in the picture, so you find out what happened to her. And I'm really intrigued. Honestly, I was on the edge of my seat over the last 3 chapters of this book because it was a point where they had to kind of go out and get supplies for a little bit. And I was just so nervous for them. And I was like, wow, I really care about these characters. So far so good with this one. I'm very excited to see where this is going to go. But yeah, I wanted to give thoughts, and I will pop in whenever I have more thoughts on this book. And like I said before, this is going to be a video that has spanned over January, February, and March. So things are going to change. Backgrounds are going to change. I'm going to change probably over the next 3 months as you see all of these different clips. But I'm so excited to share all of these books and friends with you, and we will see if these are good recommendations. I can't blame the friends because they didn't personally recommend these books to me, or at least not fully. I mean, some of them may have, but I chose this. I chose this life. So we'll see how it goes. But so far, Bethany's is going good. I'll check in with you all later. It's the same day, but much, much later. And I feel like I should go ahead and update again now because I am halfway or maybe more than halfway through this book. And I feel like if I don't update now, then I'm not going to update until the end. So I don't have a lot more to say about it, but I do just want to say that this is just a book that is really good for me to read right now. And I feel like this is like the perfect book for the perfect time type deal. Like, you know how sometimes when you read a book and you think, maybe I would have liked this, but it just wasn't the right time to read it. This is like perfect book, perfect time. And it's not for any reason in specific. It's just, I don't know, I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of a slower pace. There are moments of suspense and tension, but not very often. But I'm just very intrigued by the way that Cooper and Finch live, and it's really fun to follow them. And now we're at a point where somebody new has come onto the scene, and I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen with that. And as the story goes on, more secrets are being unraveled. Cooper shares a little bit more about his past, and I'm just really enjoying this. I feel like this is going to be a book that, which I will confirm at the end if it is or not, but I feel like this is a book that I could recommend to everybody. There's not always a lot of books I feel like I can do that with, because I can't recommend a romance book to everybody because everybody doesn't love romance, or a fantasy book because everybody doesn't love fantasy. And while this is more of like a general fiction mystery suspense novel with some survival, well, not some, a lot of survival elements, I just feel like this is a solid book that I could recommend to anybody. So I'm very excited to finish this up. I don't know if I'll check in again before I finish, but I wanted to check in now just in case I don't check in again until the end. I'm trying to capture this for y'all. I'm a wreck. I'm almost done. I'll be back. Friends, I am speechless. I'm quite literally speechless. I just don't know what to say. This was 5 stars. It's my first 5-star read of the year. I just don't know what to say. This is one of the most beautiful stories that I have ever read in my entire life. I love everything about it. I love the messaging. I love that in no world would I have ever seen this ending coming. And I just don't know what to say other than that. If you do not have this book on your radar, please let me put it there. Even if this sounds like something that you might not enjoy, even if you don't necessarily like books like this, you don't typically gravitate towards books like this, if you don't typically like survival stories, if you don't typically like slower paced stories, if you don't typically like mysteries, please, I implore you, just try this. It's less than 300 pages. Please make it to the end. I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, except thank you so much, Bethany, for putting this book in front of my face, for convincing me to read it, probably without even knowing it. This is probably one of my favorite books of all time. It's so good. So good. I really can't say too much about it. Just, again, a reminder that it's about a father and daughter who live off the grid, and they are in hiding, and you find out along the way why. And their story is just beautiful. And I strongly encourage you to read it. And that's all I'm going to say. The next time you'll see me will be whenever I start my next book for this project. But man, please, like, I know I'm not selling it probably well unless the emotions are, which hopefully they are, but please, while it's still winter, barely at the end of March, or even just like later this year, please bump this up on your TBR. I'm breaking my own rules. So I said that I was gonna do one of these a month. Like, you all are seeing this all at the same time, but I said I was gonna do one book a month. And it is the end of January. I went book shopping and I picked up Heir by, I'm probably gonna butcher this name, but I will try, Amelie Wenzel. So I don't know how many of you have seen this book or heard about this book, but I know as far as it goes for me, I've only ever heard 2 people at this point talk about this book. The one person that has put this book on my radar is Yvette from Livre S'adores. So I just remember Yvette reading this book. It's a YA fantasy, and I remember her loving it. I think she's read the second one. I can't remember for sure. But I don't even remember what this is about. But I will tell you that every time I go in public, every time I go to the bookstore and I see this book, I immediately think of Yvette. And for some reason, I just continuously am like, maybe I want to read that. And then I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy it because I don't really read a lot of fantasy and I may not even like this. But something about it this time, I just saw the cover and I was like, it's time. It's time for me to buy this book. And so I bought it. It was pretty cheap. I only got it for about like $12 at Barnes & Noble. So I feel like that's a steal, especially at Barnes & Noble. And this cover is just really riveting. I don't know the word. Like, it's beautiful, but it's also terrifying, you know? I don't know what this book is about, so I'm going to read you all the back cover, but then maybe as I read it, I can elaborate more. But this is definitely my Yvette-inspired purchase because I would not even know anything about this book if it wasn't for Yvette. And I know that Wendy from Wendy's Inspired Reads has also read this and really enjoyed it. And so, yeah, I really need to figure out what this is about, and maybe I will find a fantasy book that I enjoy. Those are very few and far between for me. So the back of this says, a princess with a deadly gift, a con man with a heart of ice, an empire on the verge. In the Cerulean Empire, oh wow, okay, this is fantasy. Athenites, Athenites, we're gonna go with that. I don't know. I'm gonna get the audiobook so I'll know how to pronounce this when I talk to you all in the future. Athenites are reviled. Their varied gifts to control the world around them are unnatural, even dangerous. And Anastasia, I'm assuming because of how it's spelled, it's Anastasia. And Anastasia Mikolov, the crown princess, is one of the most terrifying. Yeah, if this is her, she looks like it. Anna's ability to control blood has long been kept secret, but when her father, the emperor, is murdered, she is the only suspect. Now, to save her own life, Anna must find her father's killer, but the Cerulean... Sorry, guys. I'm like, am I pronouncing this right? But the Cerulean beyond the palace walls is one where corruption rules, and a greater conspiracy is at work, one that threatens the very balance of Anna's world. There is only one person crooked enough to help Anna, Ramson Quicktongue. Ramson is a cunning crime lord with sinister plans, though he might have met his match in Anna, because in this story, the princess might be the most dangerous player of all. Okay, friends, let's read. Hello, I'm here to give an update on Heir. So I am about 72 pages in, and I think I have at least a little bit of a grasp on this world now. So let me try to explain a little bit better, just in case you were like me and didn't super follow the synopsis. So I was talking to Yvette and telling her that I was reading this book, and she told me that this was based, very, very loosely based on Anastasia. So I don't know a lot about Anastasia, save what the animated movie that I watched as a kid tells me. So I don't really know a lot about Anastasia, but apparently the real person, Anastasia Romanov, she was supposedly killed in an assassination, and there is maybe a little bit of speculation that she didn't die and that she's off living somewhere, but that is clearly just speculation. Like, nobody really knew if she died or not, but like it was said that she did. And I know that there was like a situation with her brother, her younger brother, who had a blood disease, and you all may know the correct thing, and I may be saying it wrong, but I think Rasputin was brought in to help with his disease, but ended up like trying to overthrow the royal family or something like that. So that is what I know now from Yvette, if I remembered it correctly, about Anastasia. This story is like Anastasia is part of a royal family, and she ends up having this blood affinity. So she is what they call an aphanite. So there are people that are aphanites that have these different abilities to, I guess, like control different elements. So it kind of gives me Avatar, The Last Airbender vibes, but you have people who have like fire affinities, flesh affinities. That's the only ones I really know about so far. But Anastasia, or Anastasia, I think is how they say it in the book, but she goes by Anna. She has a blood affinity, and so that means she can control people's blood, which is terrifying, right? And anyway, so there, without saying too much, people believe she's dead, so that's kind of like the similarity there. And obviously she has the blood condition thing versus her brother, like the real life story. But yeah, those are like the very small things. It's Russian inspired folklore and stuff like that. But yeah, anyways, you kind of get really thrown into this world when you first get into the book, because she is trying to get information from Ramson Quicktongue, who is a like crime lord, and he's like a con man. So they end up like escaping prison and creating this bargain with each other to get what each other wants and things like that. So most of it was like an escape at the whole beginning of the book, and I've heard that this is more, well, from Yvette, she said it's kind of like a heisty type book. So if that's your vibe, maybe this book will be. And my thoughts so far are that I'm liking it. It's taken me a minute to like get into the world, and I think I'm a little more into it now. So I'm curious to see what I'm gonna think, but I will update you all when I have more thoughts. I've finished Blood Heir and I have some thoughts. So before I talk about this book, I want to preface this by saying a couple of things about myself as a reader. So I have read some fantasy books over the years, and I think what I have come to realize is that I'm just truly not a fantasy girly. 9 times out of 10, I don't enjoy fantasy. There have been a few that I've enjoyed, but for the most part, I don't. So anything that I say about this book, please take it with a grain of salt, knowing that I'm not a fantasy girly, and so you can't necessarily say, well, if she didn't like love this book, then that means I won't, because if you love fantasy, you probably will. And I am going to compare this to some other books and similar things, so maybe you can figure out if this would be a good one for you. But so this is obviously a dark fantasy retelling of Anastasia. It's very loosely based on Anastasia, but I do see how that is weaved in throughout. This story is bloody and gory, as you might be able to tell from the title. It is YA, and I would say that it is a clean story. This isn't a romantasy. So if you're going into it for that, don't, because while there is a hint that there may be a romance in the future, this is not a romantasy. This is fantasy, this is action, this is heist and high stakes type stuff. And that is not always what I jive with. I typically like more romantasy. I do want to also mention that there are some minor curse words in this, but I wanted to also say if the curse of like GD bothers you, that's in here, but it's like gods, like lowercase g, GD, but it's still the same sentiment. So I just wanted you to be aware of that in case that bothers anybody. But as far as my personal enjoyment of this book goes, I think that this was a pretty okay / good read for me. I'm teetering on that. The first part of this book was interesting, and the last part of this book was very actiony and interesting, but the middle lulled a lot for me. I never felt truly invested in Anna or why do I keep wanting to say Roman? That's not his name, Ramson. I was never super invested in Anna or Ramson or any of the other characters. In fact, there is a thing that happens in the middle of the book that should have made me cry, and I had zero emotion whatsoever, and it was at that point that I was like, man, I am really not into this. But I will say that I do think this is a good story. It reminded me of some things that I did like The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. I think that if you liked that story, liked the slower pace of it, and you liked the fact that it was a royal or a princess who had escaped from the kingdom and kind of ended up like bucking up against the kingdom, then you would probably like this. But also this had characteristics of things I didn't like Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse trilogy. But this also had some things that reminded me of like Avatar: The Last Airbender in regards to the magic system, because there are different Aphanites that have different affinities, and some of those are like wind, earth, air, fire, whatever. And those reminded me a lot of that series, and I do like that concept. But then you also had some different ones like flesh Aphanites or blood Aphanites or different things like that. I won't tell you all of them just so you can kind of learn going in. But that was an interesting magic system, and I do think this was an interesting story setup. But overall, for me, it just wasn't a favorite. I thought there were times where I was like, this is just okay. There were times where I could have easily put it down and never picked it back up. But I do think I'm going to end on a 3-star rating because I think it deserves that. And I think my feelings can be swayed in that direction. There was a quote that a lot of people seem to use for this book that I wrote down that I don't like. So there seemed to be a theme at one point in this book surrounding the quote that you can achieve everything in this world, but if it's for someone else, it's pointless. Live for yourself. I don't like that. I'm not one of those people that's like I say you do you, but like I'm not like a self type person. Like that's just not what I think is good in life, or finding your inner strength or your inner whatever. Like from a Christian perspective, like there is nothing good in me except the Lord, and He is my strength, and He is the power of good in this world. And so I don't like that. I don't like that it's a selfish stance on things, and I think it meant something else maybe, but I did not like that. And I didn't like that it's like, if you live for someone else, it's pointless. And I get like you can't live your life for someone else, but I also don't think you live for yourself. Like, I don't know. I just don't. I guess like it probably meant something different than what I'm taking it, but I just did not like that sentiment. But a couple of quotes that I wrote down that I really did like were, only loss can teach us the true worth of things. I feel like that's really impactful because a lot of times it does take losing something to realize its worth, or to realize it shouldn't take that, but to realize its worth, or to realize how much something meant to you. And I just really liked that quote. And then there was another one, this one character that's introduced later in the book talks about how she was talking to one character and said, the girl said she was afraid, and she was like, that's good. That's when we can choose to be brave. And so the main character ends up remembering this and saying like, I'm afraid, that's when we can choose to be brave. Like she remembered that sentiment, and I really like that, just to think like when I'm scared, I can be like, I am scared and I don't like this, but that's okay because that's when I can choose to be brave, you know? So I really liked that. But overall, again, I think this is just a 3-star read for me. This is the first book in a trilogy, and I don't think I'm going to be continuing. However, again, Yvette gave this book 5 stars. Wendy gave this book 5 stars. And I do think friends of mine like Jordan would really enjoy this one. I could definitely put this in her hands and feel like she would enjoy it. And anybody else out there that likes fantasy that has not picked this up, that might be intrigued by anything I've said, I think you should give it a try. Just personally, it wasn't my favorite. But again, this is coming from a non-fantasy girl. But I'm glad that I picked it up and gave it a try, and I am glad that this was like my pick for Yvette, because again, I do associate this with her, but I'm sorry that it wasn't a higher rating. I'm sorry that it was only a 3, but I will say at one point it went from like a 4 to a 2 to a 3. Like, that's the journey that we went on. But I do think, again, so many people will enjoy this, and I hope that I was able to introduce you to a new book and that maybe you can pick it up and like it. Hello again, friends. I'm here to derail this video one final time. So at the very beginning, I said that I was going to do this for 3 months, and then I was going to post at the end of March, and then I was going to do 1 book a month. Well, we didn't just do 1 book a month. I did 2 books in January, and then I haven't even started my February read yet. And as I was beginning to do that, I decided that I was going to go ahead and break up this video. So I do have 2 books in this video that I read, and I feel like it's long enough already, and I don't want you guys to get bored hearing me chat for so long in one video. So I am just going to wrap it up with these 2. So I'm so glad that I was able to read Bethany and Yvette's books, which again, they did not necessarily suggest for me, but they definitely influenced me to pick these 2 up. So I had a 5-star read and a 3-star read, and I'm really excited to see what other books and what other friends are to come. I hope you are as well. Again, if I, for some reason, did not convince you to pick up either one of these books, I highly recommend checking out Bethany's video where she talked about it in her favorite books of 2023. That is linked down below. And then also I'm going to link Yvette's Goodreads review down below, as well as Wendy's from Wendy's Inspired Reads, because both of those ladies love this book and I think rated it 4 or 5 stars. If you're excited about this concept that I'm doing, or if you just want to leave a comment for support, if you would leave a blue heart emoji down below, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm so excited to continue reading these books, and I would guess that maybe by the end of March another video would be coming out, because if I stay on schedule and read a February and March book, then I'll go ahead and just do 2 books per video. So we shall see, but I hope you all enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Bye, friends.